the biggest problem is that if you start to fall behind with Viego, there's very little you can do to come back.
And I mean, Zeri made it through. I feel like Zeri is ridiculously strong right now. The fact that she makes it through the draft, easy first pickup for LNG. The response from LGD was that Viego, as you said, but then also the Corki locked in for Haichao.
Yeah, it feels like a big takeaway from Doinb. We've actually started to see the Corki ban creep up against LNG because it's been so popular for Doinb, but I'm not going to be able to get his hands on that this time around, so we'll have to see what his answer is going to be. But things like the Swain are still up and available for him if he wants to go towards that and provide that kind of backline threat. But LNG going to go towards Lwandy's Rakan alongside the Zeri, so pretty aggressive bot lane. And Ala going to get his hands back on the Gnar. I've been a mixed bag on Ala's Gnar, to be honest, because I feel like oftentimes he ends up trying to play side lane too much rather than focusing with the team. But a Sejuani means he'll definitely be focusing with the squad.
So we have very obvious decisions being made by both teams. As you had mentioned earlier, LNG with the longest average game time in the league. We are going to scaling, baby. We are going to late game if we can make it there. I mean, there's some snowball potential, I feel like, but I would expect both teams to round out the drafts with a lot of that scaling, with a lot of that late game focus. Obviously, LNG have a huge win condition now with light on the Zeri. We'll see what LGD's answer is, and it will be the scaling option of Ornn.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see what LGD's game plan is, because one of the picks that does incredibly well against Rakan is the Lulu. So I'm curious to see if we end up going towards something like a Lulu Twitch or a Lulu Kog'Maw, which is why they're kind of going, okay, well, we'll take the Ornn and make sure that we're getting this really strong front-to-back team fight. Because if you've got Corki with the late-game poke and the damage that he can provide, plus you've got one of these late-game scaling AD carries, it could work out super well for you. And even if you wanted to go for someone like a Jinx Lulu as well, that can always work out too.
You had a couple bans coming through here for the second phase. Fiora banned away by LGD. Draven by LNG. Don't want to give that to Assum at all. And potentially more of those ADC pool, more of that ADC pool going to be banned away a little bit. LGD obviously have the focus towards the solo lanes here, though. Trying to get a decent matchup in the top side, maybe, as they do ban away the Gnar as well that was hovered by LNG before.
Yeah, I'm really surprised that they aren't going for a Gwen ban. Ala loves that pick, very strong in the current patch, and does incredibly well into the Ornn. So I feel like a Gwen setup here is probably going to be your best bet, especially if you're opting in towards, as we were talking about, the kind of attack on hit focused AD carries. Gwen can do really well just in providing that front line, getting a ton of DPS off and making life really uncomfortable for them. But we'll have to see if that is going to be the Jinx ban, something Assum has brought out a lot. But I still think you can go for a lot of these late game scalers, but actually going to be a bit of a different take on that.
A little respect here from LNG. All three of the champions Assum has played banned away in the last three bans there for LNG at least. But I love this pickup, as you were kind of alluding to, for LGD. Giving the Senna over, giving some more scaling, but making sure to tie the team composition together with those reinforcements we talked about.
Yeah, I'm curious as to what the game plan is, though, because I think their thought process was, oh, well, if they've got the Zeri, maybe Doinb's going towards some... I know he doesn't play a huge amount of it, but like a Zoe, or maybe an Azir or something along these lines, and they might go for like some sort of poke composition, so having the Senna there to try and alleviate that can help, but I think you're taking away a decent chunk of your late game. I think I just wanted more damage to be coming from the AD carry role, but we'll have to see exactly how it ends up turning out. We talked about the potential here for a Gwen. We're actually not going to see it with the Sejuani locked in, so I think the Volibear going to be heading in towards the jungle. We will get the Sejuani top here, and there's the Tahm Kench to round it out on that bottom side.
King of the jungle, making sure to have the King of Lightning? I don't remember exactly the exact lore of Mr. Volibear, but LNG have a very scary composition nonetheless. I love the instant lock-in of the Tahm Kench, the tried and true duo of the Senna Tahm Kench to make sure there is safety down in that bot lane. We got to pick apart these compositions a little bit, because I just feel at this point you've opted into LNG's style for LGD, and it's all about execution from here, and there's a lot of execution to be had.
Yeah, I think so for LNG, for LGD, this is going to be a tough one. For LGD, they are much more focused on, hey, we're just going to take it easy in the early stages. I mean, even with the Viego pick in there, like everything screams late game in this composition, but unfortunately not an awful lot of it screams early game aggression. you don't have a bot lane you can play around the Tahm Kench. They want to take it easy. You got an Ornn top side, king of the weak side. You've got the Corki mid as well, who just wants to chill. Like, you actually don't have a huge amount of pressure, which is why I was kind of looking at maybe we can swap the Sejuani into the jungle, just because there's no lane pressure there that actually like warrants you to kind of worry about any sorts of invades or anything like that happening. But when you look across at LNG, having Doinb on the Sylas, you actually have some opportunities to try and look for these early fights kind of off of 1 to 2 items. You've got a decent early jungler as well in the Volibear, so I expect quite a bit of action towards this mid lane to see if you can get on towards the Corki in the early stages, and then maybe see if you can spread that around the map as well.
But I think that's the most interesting point is what we were saying, looking at the reinforcements for LGD, there were some particular picks we wanted to see, especially for Haichao, the Galio, trying to find some influence with the team, right, and the mobility out of mid lane. I think with the Corki, you can get that to some extent if everything gets volatile in the mid lane, but it's not necessarily one of those picks I would have been looking for. I would have loved to see the Galio come through again for Haichao, but this is another bar of execution for him in terms of looking for positioning. You are one of the main carries here. You are going to be the transition in damage for LGD, and it's going to be a tough test to say the least going against Doinb.
Especially when they're kind of deviating away from the style that we talked about with Shadow and JinJiao working together, because with JinJiao and the Tahm Kench, he's more than likely going to be farming, because although farming Senna is viable on this patch, we've still seen teams go for the fasting Senna, so I think you're just not going to have that link up between Shadow and JinJiao in the same way, and that could mean that you're not actually able to get as much control over the map as LGD would like.
And as we hit the rift for the first time of Super Saturday here in week number 4, LNG versus LGD. It is about control. It is about macro decisions, and it is about potentially objectives. It's all looking at the early game. It's looking at where these junglers will be pathing to, where the resources are going to, and all eyes on Shadow and Tarzan. As it does look like we'll get opposite side starts this time around, Dagda.
I'm going to give you a very painful statement here.
What you got? I'm ready for the pain. I'm gritting my teeth.
I think this is going to be a slow early game.
No way.
I really don't see this popping off. Like,
that's
LGD's composition.
Field, dude. I need you to calm down. All
right? Yeah, I just, like, LGD's composition just doesn't do anything in the early stages at all. And realistically, I think Tarzan has some places to make plays, but it's really hard to get onto a Senna Tahm Kench. You have some maybe plays to make around mid, but even then, Corki's pretty good at avoiding that. So I don't know.
I want to ask.
I feel like this is going to be a lot of like staring intensely, menacingly at each other across the rift.
Until you see the whites of their eyes. Nobody pull the trigger. But yeah, that's where I do want to ask. Like, where do you think the mindset for LGD comes into taking a game like this into LNG, taking something that necessarily we wouldn't want to see from LGD and something that LNG feels confident in, but trying to use that against them, trying to use some of their own poison? What do you think the mindset is and why they approach the series that way?
I imagine they're going, hey, look at all the stats that Mazel and Dagda put up at the stat today.
They're definitely doing that.
Oh, these guys, they don't play early game. Like, there is very little interaction between the lanes. There's very little interaction between how they want to set up for objectives and these kind of things. So hey, let's just go all out in the late game scaling. Let's put the question to LNG going, can you boys actually get it together in the early game so that we can try and look for some sort of early gold advantage that you can actually play through? And looks like LNG going to try and answer that.
An early dive here. Tarzan, Ala trying to get Chelizi. But it's a nice double knockup. Ala has to get out of there. They have to abandon and flash the dive on top lane. No. That's huge.
I thought Ala was going to have an orange charge coming through and he's going to go down, but I agree, massive. This is why I was kind of going, hey, LNG, what are you going to do? Because that play was not really going to work. It's really hard to dive an Ornn because you've got the ability to dissuade a lot of that early CC thanks to Bellows Breath. You got knockups galore like that. And even though towers are slightly weaker, they still hurt. So Chelizi just totally fine to chill underneath the tower.
Shadow will be going for a bit of invade here as he's going for the Krugs. Light not resetting. Lwandy went ahead and did pull the trigger on that. Light is all by himself at this point. See the first plate at least go down, I would expect here. Tarzan on his way down, but will not find his Krugs. A little bit salty about that one as Shadow makes his way out through the mist.
and he will go off into the night calmly. But yeah, again, I mean, this is kind of what I was saying. Tarzan doing his damnedest to actually make some early plays happen, but I just don't really see a world where you're able to get much through that top side at the moment for Tarzan. I really do feel like you have to try and move through this mid side.
I can appreciate the early attempt, at least with the Sejuani passive, to try to get something, but yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like, hey, if you're trying to like work through that, and like using the Sejuani passive, I think your best bet is trying to look for topside skirmishes. Like this 3v3 could work out really well for LNG around things like the Rift Herald, just with the amount of melee champions you have to actually proc that Sejuani passive. And the fact like every single one of these guys brings momentous amounts of CC to the occasion.
Yeah.
Like it's the wedding gift that LGD really don't want.
Yeah, I feel like those are rare, but yeah, I'd say at this point I would accept that one. I find it interesting that, you know, we get this bottom lane, obviously looking to late game. You get the Senna, that's an obvious farming lane. You get the Zeri, not really a champion, so you can get a little bit further along. Yet Assum and JinJiao are doing some work down there and keeping the aggression lane and letting Shadow kind of make his way around the map at this point. I think it's at least something for LGD early on.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that. Oh, and as you say that, they actually go in again. That usually in these lanes, the Tahm Kench starts to fall behind because it's just like, oh, damn, you know, we're getting so much poke, we can't really do anything. But as you say, like, Assum doing a good job to keep JinJiao topped up. They're actually finding really good engages. Lwandy as well, stopping the reset there. So LGD are going to get the first dragon. And this was one of the things that I actually thought LNG might have been able to play for, like where Tarzan maybe tries to make them play bot, they lean that over into the dragon, but not having any sort of presence here means that LGD just managed to pick that one up out without much discourse coming through from LNG.
Well, apparently LNG subjectively decide not to take the first objective. It will be the Hextech Dragon going over to LGD. Ala is in a little bit of transition here, trying to catch Haichao. Does land the Glacial Prison, but Haichao flashes away. Now Ala needs to be careful. The rockets. Oh, not enough, Tarzan. He's trying to body block at this point. He's doing nicely. Shadow, you're going too far, man. You're going too far. Doinb takes the Heartbreaker and breaks Shadow's heart with first blood.
I mean, it was a prayer going in onto that one, Shadow. That wasn't really going to work out. Haichao, very low in mana. Big wave under the turret that he doesn't want to leave. And honestly, at that stage, you just let it go.
Let it go,
Shadow,
man. Let it go.
You know what? The funny thing is, Shadow should have let it go, and he ended up frozen because he didn't.
Haichao's just sitting there screaming like, bruh, like, come on. I got out of a dive
did such
at
a good
level
job.
6.
Like, the fact that Haichao actually turns this around is like, that's it. This is what we're talking about. Haichao, you've got the LPL blood in you, man. You were born for this. But yeah, Shadow, ever so slightly short. Ala with a good sidestep, and yeah, Frozen is now
looks
Shadow's
like I just
name.
ate a lemon, Dagda. I don't like.
Yeah.
Oh, that feels bad. That feels bad. But hey, early transgressions aside from LGD, got a little bit of an outplay, a little mechanical hands there from Haichao. We were talking about the development. I love to see it at least, but see if they can bring back a little bit of calmness into this game where we were saying, you know, it's about scaling, it's about longevity, and at this point, LGD seemed like they want to throw a wrench into the works on that one.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like, when you look at LGD, even with that kill going across, they still have a decent lead. You've got a big CS advantage going over towards Shadow, so even though that kill did go the way of LNG, LGD are still in a good spot. As well, bot side, 2 turret plates already taken for them. You got 1 turret plate taken for Chelizi in the top side as well. Like, this early game is actually going very well for LGD right now.
Let's see Shadow up towards the top side. Seeing if Ala wants to go a little bit aggressive to get priority for Doinb in the mid lane. So this will mean Rift Herald number 1 for LNG. A bit of control of the map and the plates to come up next.
Yeah, I think this is a good call from LNG trying to force a play around this objective in the top side. Because as we talked about, their skirmish between the 3v3 is incredibly strong if they can get it to work. Especially when you can see like Doinb having access to things like Chelizi's ultimate to really start fights off. So I like that LGD didn't actually try and contest that. Just let Assum and JinJiao continue to punish on bot side and continue to try and take more of these turret plates.
Yeah, that's a little bit scary to give Doinb that Ornn ulti. See where that gets the trigger pulled a little bit later on. But honestly, been okay, at least with the way that Chelizi has been doing in the top side, because the fact that we do see the Ornn gameplay coming out, you obviously have a little bit more of that weak side propensity, but Ala has been trying. We've seen Tarzan attempt to dive earlier on. And so far, besides Shadow overextending, LGD have had their umbrellas up and they've been bearing the storm at least.
Yeah, and one of them is a Hex umbrella as well, because when you look over at Haichao, the fact he's able to get that Hex drinker nice and early is super nice, because you think of Tarzan, normally you're like, oh yeah, Volibear hits me a lot, that's physical damage, but actually a lot of Volibear's kit is surprisingly magic damage focused. You got Doinb's magic damage focused, Ala who is the same as well. A huge amount of this top side of the map is AP damage, so the fact that you actually get the Hex Drinker nice and early here means it's going to be so much more difficult for them to try and go for these plays onto Haichao, who already is just like, why are there 4 people in my lane? I know you're here, go away.
At this point, the Ornn Horde does come through for Doinb just to be a pain. As will go ahead and use that TP to mid lane, provide a little bit of at least recompense for LNG's presence there. Another plate falls in bot lane, but there's the lightning crash. And guess who else is crashing? It's a tidal wave onto LGD's bot lane. The rest of LNG have shown up, and LGD doesn't have much to say about it. Abyssal Dive will go through, but that's some fried catfish. Assum gets out with a flash, but here comes the bear, and here comes a double kill for LNG's Light.
Greedy by LGD's bot lane. They stick around for the turret plate, but you saw LNG leaving the mid lane and they get caught out by it. So kills going across to LNG, whereas you'll end up with 2 turret plates, one in bot, one in mid going for LGD. Definitely not a worth trade, especially with this Rift Herald going down.
Indeed, indeed. It'll be a lot more resources funneled into this bot lane where we said, Light is going to be in late game win condition. At this point, with all this gold, it's going to be a little bit closer to late game. As I think we had a bit of an issue there. I don't know. I don't think it charged when it was supposed to.
Yeah.
But, we'll figure that out. I'm sure we'll come back to our wonderful faces in shock and awe as, that's not supposed to happen, Dagda.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to definitely need a bit of a chrono break on that one, because that tower should 100% be dead. I'm not really sure what happened there, but yeah, I got to say, though, I like that at least we're starting to see the lanes moving about for LNG, where we actually have Ala consistently trying to move down and towards this mid lane to find plays for Doinb. Like, this is something that we kind of talked about, is that there's a lot missing on LNG side in how they try to approach the early game and the movement between the lanes. So the fact that we don't actually have that, the fact that we have that now at least looks a little bit more positive, I would say, for this squad.
Yeah, I want to do a holistic check-in so far, because I will say, besides the early thing that happened, that's what we'll call it, I've really, really liked this early iteration of LGD, the iteration they put out for us today, right? The fact that we do have Chelizi coming in here for Fearness. We have, the summer reinforcements that we had already talked about, Haichao and Assum. And I think we've seen some moments from each one of them, be it, Chelizi trying to stop the snowball from happening in top lane, doing so nicely. And then we're seeing some mechanics from both of the other laners that we've been talking about, in the fact that Assum is pushing up on this Senna, is playing aggressive still in this lane that should be waiting a little bit longer. We see Haichao able to get out of these crazy circumstances in the mid lane that LNG is putting so many resources into. And I just had to do a little check-in. We got pause. I want to check it, because I think LGD has shown up, and I love this iteration of it.
Yeah, I gotta say, I've been really impressed with Haichao and the fact that he's been so aware of how pressure can be coming towards the mid lane. Like, he got out of the first gank incredibly well, but you can see when Ala again came down to try and put pressure onto this mid lane, Haichao respected it massively, did not go near the tower because he knew he was going to need help, and waited until he had not only the support of his jungler, but also potential TP coming through from Chelizi as well, before he tried to get up towards that wave. So I really think you're seeing a good understanding of LGD in general, of how to bypass a lot of what LNG are doing in these early stages. The only problem that you're seeing is that, like, once one domino falls, LNG are picking up a lot more. And a lot of that is to do with, like, how we saw that bot lane go for LGD, where they have gotten 3 plates, but then they overextend that little bit. We had the Rift Herald instantly go down, not charge, but should charge. I'm going to have to see exactly what the plan is there. But,
yeah,
like, these should be moments where you are respecting that LNG could be there, but we're just not getting that from from LGD. So we're almost getting a really good play from LGD where they are holding on to control, but we're just not quite getting it fully.
And hopefully, for everyone watching, obviously we had a little bit of an issue with the game. Hopefully we'll get the information on what exactly will be coming next, exactly how we're going to fix this issue. But just hang with us, hang tight with us as we continue to work through this one. And go back to, are you checking back in at all from this early game, Dagda? Did you want a little bit more rest time at the LNG hotel? Like, are you looking to get the spa amenities at this point? Do you think?
Do you know what? I've taken photos of the LNG facilities. I've not been impressed. I've posted my review on Yelp.
Oh, no.
I've checked into a different hotel.
Oh God!
It's actually, you know, it's
but they got the
shared
Rift
hotel
Herald.
with
Come
V5
on.
and anyone's legend. You know, yeah. Where V5 provide the room service, that's absolutely spectacular. Anyone's legend provide the gym because those lads are chat and jacked as all hell.
True.
This is where I actually am, you know.
I can appreciate that one for sure, but I still, you know, you get a little bit of that control. You can see where Tarzan has been looking in the early game. We've already seen him try multiple times, at least in the solo lanes, and I think that's what you're looking for LNG. Maybe not necessarily that top lane gank that happened, but it was something to throw off LGD a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, is that LNG are trying to get the pieces into position so they can actually play it through this mid game. Because you look at, like, the Zeri, very good at 3 items, don't get me wrong, but certainly a champion that has an earlier spike than, say, something like the Senna, who has that great late game scaling thanks to her passive. You've got, like, super tanks coming in the Ornn. Even the farming time Kench becomes incredibly difficult to deal with. And it's not like you've got things that can do amazing stuff into that. Like Sylas, not exactly a tank killer. Same when you look across at things like the Volibear falls off a cliff in the later portion of the game. So you're heavily reliant on basically just this Zeri to be your late game damage. And that's not going to be enough against how many tanks are set up on LGD side. Especially because the build that you traditionally like to go on a Zeri is your Immortal Shield Bow, Phantom Dancer, Infinity Edge. But now you've got to try and slap an early Lord Dominic's Regard in there to try and deal with these tanks that are on the side of LGD. So it's going to make things a little bit more difficult. So if LNG aren't hitting the mid game well, it's not going to look good as this game goes on. The fact that you've got early dragons already going the way of LGD, now there's not this big gold lead or even starting to swing in favor of LNG, can be an issue. And I'm curious to see what the plan is for LNG as we come back into live.
Oh!
And
wait.
Oh.
Okay, I guess we're back.
Well,
the Rift Herald
sucks.
didn't get anything. So we just got an update. There was Doinb who reported an in-game issue that they were investigating, and here we are back into the game. The Rift Herald didn't get the tower bot lane, but apparently that's okay.
Oh, that's just kind of sad for LNG, to be honest. Like, that was what I was going to say, is that the one thing they had come for them was this early Rift Herald, which was going to give some gold across to LNG's bot lane and have, like, kind of accelerated. And maybe you get the opportunity as well to look for a little bit more, but looks like we're just going to hop into... This is just a replay on this bot side, but yeah, JinJiao and Assum overextending for that bot wave. We already talked about it, where LNG just end up roaming down off the mid lane play, and this is just greedy. Like, the fact they kind of needed to have the maybe Abyssal Dive come through a bit sooner, but even then, the ability to just turn off the tower like you see just makes this so difficult to actually deal with here on LGD side.
My eyes just got a bunch of eye candy thrown at them in the middle of your very nice analytical statement, because that Stormbringer, the directed cam on that was insane. Hey,
yeah, I didn't
glad
even know
they could
that
get
TT
something put
was on
together in the
today.
pause at least, right?
Yeah, I didn't even know TT was on today, because that was some T-Taurus. That was actually, that was nice. That was looking slick.
It was indeed. But let's zoom back into this game a little bit. Feel out where we're at after that little bit of a pause. Did get a lot of pressure from LNG as they had gotten the first blood on Shadow. Now they have transitioned that into a Rift Herald charge in bot lane, punishing Assum and JinJiao for their overextension. We still have LGD marking up those dragons. A nice win condition for them in a Mountain Soul coming up after a while, but it's still a late game win condition for them. And both teams trying true on their marks at this point, getting to the late game.
And here's the thing, your chances are you're going to end up seeing the Rift Herald spawn about a minute before that next dragon. So I feel like if LNG are again able to play through this three-man squad on the top side, pick up the Rift Herald, they might be able to use Rift Herald mid to get priority, get themselves into a position for dragon. And if that's the case, I do give them a pretty good opportunity. I think if you're able to quickly dive onto everyone from this position in the game with a ton of CC from Ala, Tarzan, Doinb, even Lwandy, I think you can take the fight against LGD because of how much late game scaling is in their composition, and maybe that's your window into the game.
Would be a window. Speaking of windows for LGD, I'm gonna try to find a window through Ala up here. He does dodge out the first little bit, but he'll go into the alcove, buying time for his teammates to get up here to redeem him, but I don't think they're gonna have time. Dawning Shadow came across map there to help out, but it will be LGD on the board here, as well as first tower for the LGD squad.
Yeah, because Lwandy was roaming up here meant that Zeri was by herself, so Light forced away from the tower, and Chelizi might be the same.
Yep, your buddy Shadow got out. You did not get so lucky. He started the back a little bit late and will pay for it with his life.
Unfortunate there, Chelizi just not respecting again the fact that LNG just linger around that bit longer. So Doinb will end up getting the first tower of the game in favor of LNG. So nice to kind of get the go going over towards Doinb. And looks like Doinb's actually going for something that he's been a very big fan of, which is the Crown of the Shattered Queen. He ends up building it a lot on champions rather than going for the Everfrost that we traditionally see on the Sylas. But I think it's really not the spot to go for the Crown of the Shattered Queen here, because realistically, you've got a ton of poke in LGD that can actually get rid of that Crown of the Shattered Queen passive quite easily, to be honest.
Well, another Rift Herald goes into the pocket of Tarzan. I don't see it in the inventory, but we'll figure it out when we come back for this one. This was unfortunate for Chelizi.
Yeah, Chelizi, like, this is actually, well, I was going to say, it's a nice setup from Shadow. Chelizi kind of just misses everything.
Yeah.
Like, throws down the Q, doesn't connect, goes for the ult, Ala dodges it, then tries to go for the knock-up on the wall, then misses that one as well. So Shadow's just like, all right, well, look, either way,
it's
I've got
his
a ton of damage.
first game of the season, all right? Come on, let's give him some time.
No, it needs to be perfect
you're
right
against
now.
Allah. It is make or break this moment.
Yeah, this is what decides whether LGD goes to Worlds
His
or not.
career lives or dies from this moment. Literally.
But now, this is what we're talking about, right? You had basically the Rift Herald spawn a minute before the Dragon. Rift Herald goes to LNG. So now they want to try and see if they can use it in this mid lane, but LGD keeping firm grasp on the mid lane for the moment.
They do, and you may wonder why LGD still have a little tiny gold lead at this moment when they're 4-1 in the deficit, at least in kills. And that is because Shadow has been farming up a literal storm at this point, and he is so far ahead of Tarzan. It helps fluctuate that gold a little bit in LGD's favor. That's not going to be so for long if LGD can't find anything else on the map.
Yeah, it looks like LGD might just give up this dragon and instead look to take the mid lane turret, which I think is honestly your best call here. Again, I think this is where LNG are strongest. The fact they haven't gotten any of these early dragons means realistically, like, you're looking, what, 30 plus minutes before you actually have to worry about a third dragon or a fourth dragon. So for LNG, just trying to play the map state is LGD, excuse me. It's better to play the map state. So they get mid tower, they rotate up off this wave as well, and they should be able to get this top lane turret as well off this play with Haichao there. So honestly, great trade for LGD. This is exactly what you need to do when you have the later scaling composition.
Yep, exactly that. Playing to the win conditions here. I love to see it, even with the early slip-ups. And it's still a very tightly contested game at 17.5. We'll see a lot of pressure from LNG in the mid lane, though. Trying to get this mid tower knocked down. Would be on his way as well. This is a full 5-man stack there. Rift Herald also utilized, while Haichao still in the side lane, does have TP if they want to pull a trigger on a fight here. Ornn comes out from Doinb. It's going to be LNG moving forward under the tower. The tower falls, and so does LGD, but not just yet. JinJiao gets out with a smidgen of health. The Rift Herald will not get another charge off, and nice defense from LGD.
Yeah, LGD will end up losing their mid tower in response, so that's all 3 outer towers down on both sides. But the nice thing for LGD, at least in that case, is that you look at this top lane, a massive wave was lost for LNG. The Herald was used as well, so the fact you're keeping pace when LNG got both Rift Heralds this game is actually working out relatively well for LGD. The slight kill lead, but with the gold that they picked up from turret plates, from the CS advantage we talked about from Shadow and everything else, honestly, I'm not seeing LNG really get a big enough lead at the moment to really be that much of a threat for LGD if we get to the 25-minute plus.
So that's the next thing we got to talk about here then, because we talked about scaling, both teams opting into it in terms of the way they want to go, but at this point we got to start asking the question, who comes out on top in that scaling discussion? Because I'm seeing Light go on 2 items now, he's working on his 3rd. We're still waiting on Assum to really get those stacks up and get the souls under his belt to feel good. Haichao still waiting on his Manamune. There's a lot of questions to be asked on who do you think comes out better in the end if they do make it to 30, 35 minutes.
It's LGD every time. Like, it's not even close. Tarzan just isn't relevant to the late game. You've got this Senna who isn't even opting for the lethality build that we generally see, going for the Kraken Slayer option. Instead, they're going to be incredibly strong late game. Corki, we always talk about how strong this pick is late as well. Like, pretty much everything on LNG kind of starts to hit hard now. But even when you look at, like... when you look to 3-4 items, like Ala isn't as tanky as Chelizi, Shadow outscales, like everything on LGD just comes out on top.
I'll love to hear it. Well, LGD, I'm sure we'll love to hear it as well. LNG looking mid though. Glacial Prison perfectly onto Assum. Lightning Crash here as we do have the flank coming in from Lwandy. This is a beautiful play from LNG. Doesn't matter if you get a 5-man Ornn knockup, it's a double kill for Light.
LNG have been playing around this vision control they've put in topside so well. So Ala getting the pick on towards Assum with the ultimate forces JinJiao out to use the ult early. But Lwandy's just sneaking around in this topside jungle because LGD haven't contested any of the vision control that's up there. Now LNG are onto the Baron and Shadow is still around. So it looks like LNG won't be as confident and will back away.
A little bit of respect from LNG. I think it's the right call in this situation, right? You got package available for Haichao. You also had, as you said, Shadow around with the smite to try and steal it over the wall. LNG are fine riding the wave that they have created for themselves, the ripples, at least at this point, that has turned into a wave for LNG. And it comes off the back of just great decision making. And that is where we look at the difference between both these two teams. The expectations for both these two teams. The quick decision making, you better bet that's on LNG's side.
I think you're starting to see the problems with having a newer player trying to provide the support role when they're used to playing AD carry, right? Because you can see here, Assum steps up to try and get some vision control down. He gets caught out, but there's zero vision pretty much at all on the map for LGD right now, which is why you're seeing this like slow push forward with several members of LGD to try and establish that from the mid lane. But it just means that LNG have so many different routes and angles of attack which LGD get caught out.
Look at that damage. Oh my god. I know we usually talk about Ezreal with the buffed up numbers because the poke and the prod that he does provide, but at this point, I don't know if those are buffed up numbers or if that's just Light having a great time at this point.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely him being able to provide a ton of that damage, and this is what we talked about, right? It's the Light is going to have to be.
Oh, here we go. Doinb pulls the trigger. JinJiao gets caught. Nice Epscon up Duck. Max range there. The Ultra Shock Laser does a decent amount of damage. Lwandy's coming back for it. They have found Chelizi, but he gets eaten up, devoured by JinJiao. Now LGD will find themselves safe yet again, but a lot of ultimates used in terms of safety. The Devour and the Dawning Shadow as Dragon on the table for LNG.
You have to be so careful. Ala still has that ultimate and Tarzan as well. We're going to get a fight here, Mazel.
This could be second Dragon already taken, though, by LNG, and they could just get out of here. They don't need to stay for the fight. LGD are too slow to come in and stop them from taking the objective.
Yeah, I mean, LNG managing to get the second Dragon for themselves, so nicely done, but LGD, they're pushing mid and threatening position on this Baron. I don't think they're actually going to be able to take it, though. I think it's more about getting vision control in that area and trying to remove some of the wards that LNG already have established. But again, you're seeing that LNG making the plays.
Yet again, it's the trigger pulls every time, Dagda. Doesn't matter if it's coming from Lwandy, Ala, or even Doinb. It is the trigger pulling that has been executing LGD.
And you're just seeing that every time LGD not establishing themselves front to back. Assum twice now caught out in the front line by Ala's ultimate, when realistically that should never be the case. Now LNG going to start up this objective as JinJiao will cancel the reset. Haichao's top side. Can we get the steal?
Without Assum, the damage profile just isn't there. And look, again, the entire team almost in sync goes over the wall. Nice knockout from Chelizi, devour from JinJiao, but it's all she wrote here for LGD. They're getting wiped clean as 2 more kills for Light. He has just been racking up the double kills left and right.
And we said we needed to get to 25 minutes plus for LGD to be relevant. Well, LNG have come alive at the 20-minute mark, making sure they're finding pick after pick. 6-0 for Light, as you called out, Mazel. That's going to be the Infinity Edge completed very early for this Zeri. And it means now you can start to get to work on that Lord Dominic's Regard as soon as possible as well, having picked up your 3 core items. But we'll see it here.
Good.
Way too far forward. Why? I don't know why you're trying to contest this wave, but this is what we're talking about with the new members of LGD. They need time to adjust the pace of LPL, because that was them getting caught out by a veteran of the LPL.
Yeah, I will say, even with all the new faces in LGD, I think you see Chelizi in those kinds of moments. You still see a little bit of shining light in that terms of like trying to navigate these fights, right? When you're looking at the fights, even if they are one-sided at this point for LGD, it's about picking apart what looks good in those fights for LGD. And I think Haichao sitting at 0-0-0, probably not the scoreline he'd want to be at, but I would say it's better than having given over a bunch of kills in the mid lane to Doinb. As LNG have started up the Baron yet again, you would expect it's just a bait if LGD try to come, but that's the thing about baits. If you don't call it, they'll just take it.
Yeah, it will be spotted out by the Squires. Forward there. Shadow.
They're just going to all go over the wall again, right? Like they could just rinse and repeat what happened last time. It's literally just going to happen again. They're just getting pulled into the fight. Ornn across, but isn't going to do anything. Glacial Prison onto JinJiao. Chelizi's in a 1v5, and he finally dies. There's a nice little triple root from Assum. Dawning Shadow is not going to do enough. He's starting to scale up, starting to stack up, but it will not be in time. LNG just pushing forward as 5.
LGD, though, still relatively healthy, but hasn't been able to heal people up. I mean, Chelizi actually doing a lot of work, and you can see how much damage it takes to take down the Ornn in this composition. Light!
Light's looking for it. He sees a big outplay potential here, but he won't go for it just yet.
Yeah, again, though, just slightly picking off members of LGD means that LNG are starting to push into about a 3,000 gold lead. Bit by bit, they're getting this gold that they need, and slowly but surely eking their ward line forward just by constantly starting up this Baron. But you need to be careful, because Doinb doesn't have TP, relatively low in health as he pushes in this top side, and we'll need to reset now with a minute until the Dragon. It feels like, again, LNG are just going to try and burst this one down, or maybe look for a pick before LGD get there.
We have 3 items now for Light. He'll be out on the map. We also now have 3 items complete for Doinb, who just completed the Demonic Embrace. So a lot of health damage coming out there from the Sylas in mid lane. Kind of interested in that build of the Leandries plus Demonic to start it off, but they're starting off the Baron here at LNG yet again. This is rinse and repeat for the 3rd time in a row.
Yeah, I mean, they're just using Ala as this engage tool with Lwandy. Shadow trying to push forward.
They all have tools to just go over the wall. That's what I love about this LNG composition. If they want to go, they go. And here goes Lwandy, the AoE. It's too dang much, Dagda. I don't know if I can even continue watching this. Tarzan Stormbringers into the back. It's a double kill for Doinb. It's about to be a whole clean ace. No, he doesn't get him. Shadow gets out by the skin of his teeth. LNG will turn back onto the Baron, and it is just time at this point that is the enemy of LGD.
I mean, it's 4 kills for LNG, 2 neutrals for LNG and Baron and that Dragon, and 1 limping member of LGD that escaped. I think LNG are going to be pretty damn happy with the way that one went. And as you say, I mean, the mobility on LNG's side, so clean here. And Assum once more just getting caught out in the mix means that he goes down instantly, and LNG punish. We'll see it here. We have 0 vision control, realistically.
He didn't grab the package.
Oh, Haichao left the base.
He didn't grab
he left the base
package.
without the package.
Oh,
no,
I don't know
Haichao.
what to say about that. Like, oh, no. Well.
Especially since it would have got him here faster as well.
Yep.
And might have been in a good spot just as this engage came through. But again, Assum just way too far forward. Flash in from Lwandy to stun up the AD carry. And Haichao can't really carry these fights solo. Great flank here from Tarzan to cut off the escape route as well. Just everyone except for Shadow and LGD ends up falling.
There's a bit of unfortunate news for LGD as they are still with the 1 kill they found in response earlier. It'll be 3 dragons back to back to back for LNG, secured 1 away from the Mountain Soul. Look at that damage chart there. It's been light all game long. His percentages are going to be insane when we get to that last stat graph.
I mean, I think at this stage, definite MVP coming through from Light when it comes towards the damage, but the engages from Allah have been incredible. The follow-up from Tarzan as well. Like, this is a much more coordinated LNG, and something that I think we are kind of hoping to see a little bit more of, because we talked about how LGD kind of posed the question to LNG, like, how can you play through the mid-game LNG? How coordinated can you be? And they've been insane.
Yeah, they really have. Now they're just pushing forward again. And going back to the holistic conversation at the beginning of this, right, we said there are different expectations for these teams looking into the rest of the season. This should be a series that LNG come out and prove that they are one of the top dogs. They deserve to be at the top of the table. LGD just looking to be the underdog story, looking to find something on the season, find that development that we were talking about. And here, this is exactly what we would have expected from the top of the day coming into this one.
Yeah, I think from LNG, the fact that they are taking this nice and easy is definitely a plus sign. But I think from LGD, oh, hang on.
Oh, it's the double Ornn hordes. They both don't really get much there. It's just a little bit of show, a little bit of fireworks before we get to July 4th.
Yeah. I mean, we still might be getting a bit more.
They got rockets.
They're looking to bring it early.
They're trying, but they don't do any damage. There's 3 mountain dragons already, and they're losing their inhib tower in the top lane.
Yeah, and the problem is that because LGD are behind, they're not getting the magic pen they need. That's the Zeri
That was an
poke.
ultra shock laser. That was a basic ability. Light is kiting away. They've gotten 1. Haichao is down, and the rest of LGD. That's a big old stolen dawning shadow coming across. They have not found a single kill back after that one. Another double kill for Light, and LNG will round out game number 1 in dominating fashion. 18-1, 10,000 gold in the lead. They say, you want to bring a late game comp to us? Well, go ahead and bring it, LGD.
LNG gonna close out game 1 after a spectacular mid-game where they take over against LGD.
What a way to win as well. Taking exactly what they expected from the draft, exactly how they wanted to play their composition, and execute it to a T. Early gift started by Shadow in the mid lane, and it was just a snowball from there.
Yeah, I mean, look, the mistake from Shadow definitely not helping, but honestly, I think that this was a lot of mistakes coming through in the mid game as to vision setup, being able to play around your composition properly. Like, the fact that Assum got caught out twice by Allah, just overstepping in that mid lane, caused way more issues than I'll say Shadow did in the early stages. Yeah. Also, again, I think when you try to play a Senna composition, a lot of teams kind of overlook, and even I think a lot of viewers overlook, like, the very different style you then have to play as an AD carry, because you're now the support. You're the one who has to make sure that you're getting the vision control down at the right time, in the right place, and making sure that's all working out correctly. But you can see that was a big struggle for Assum in this game. Like, Assum never really got the vision control that he needed down or in the right places. We saw LNG have a ton of control of pretty much all of the jungle of LGD, but all they really needed was that top side. And consistently, Allah was finding positions in to find flanks. Lwandy was finding positions to find flanks. And that was actually what caused the issue for LGD here, was not being able to set up for this front to back.
Yeah, and the front to back every time, right? Like, the positioning that we highlighted in the beginning, specifically on Haichao in the A block earlier on today, definitely still needed to be assigned to Assum and the rest of the team, really, where you're seeing some of those positioning mistakes, even in Chelizi on the top side, playing weak side, having some difficulties up there. And I think it can be expected for a team that's coming together, that's still, getting new faces, right? First game for Chelizi on the top side. We're still trying to get Haichao and Assum used to the developmental cycle here in the LPL as well. And bright spots, but not bright enough to take down LNG, one of the top teams.
Yeah, I mean, it's so sad to see, because so many games that I've been watching from LGD, it's like, it seems like, okay, we're starting to get themselves into like a good pace, at the right place, the right time, and then it's just these slight positioning errors that come through that end up costing them. So I wouldn't be surprised if we come back into this and LGD kind of drop the Senna pick Because I feel like just in this, Assum just wasn't able to control the area as much as they needed to. But looking at the positives for LNG, I definitely think that this was a team that did incredibly well when it came to how they wanted to try and coordinate themselves. Ala consistently looking for roams down to try and find plays in the mid lane. Tarzan linking up well. And then even as we got in towards the later stages of the game, the fact that Lwandy and Ala were consistently finding these engages through flank angle was just brilliant.
Light is 42.4% of his team's damage. That is insane. He's making everybody else look like chumps. Like that's going to be insane for Light.
And that's the thing. Oftentimes people look at that damage and they go, okay, well, you know, that's nice, 42%. Like, the rest of the team just didn't do a huge amount of damage. That's why you need to look at the damage to gold. 224% is absurd. We rarely see people get above 200. And the fact he's well above that is absolutely insane.
And
so
he's not
you
playing
can
the
definitely see
farming
that. Yeah, Light was popping off in this one.
He absolutely was. I'm very excited to see